It was around 6:15 in the morning. I tried to stand up from bed like I always did, but my legs hesitated, not in pain, not numb, just strangely disconnected, as if my brain was speaking, but my body didn't want to listen. I'm not a doctor. I'm just someone who used to feel strong every morning until one day I didn't. That was the moment I knew something was changing. And it led me down a path I never expected. At first, I thought I was just tired. Maybe I hadn't slept well. Maybe I needed new shoes. Maybe it was just one of those mornings. But then it kept happening. I'd wake up, put my feet on the floor, and feel like they weren't fully mine. Heavier, slower, slightly unstable. It wasn't pain. It wasn't dizziness. It was something far quieter, but far more alarming. So, I started looking for answers, not in painkillers or gym routines, but in something simpler. In my mornings. And more specifically, in what I was eating or not eating. What I discovered changed everything. Not overnight, but over days, weeks. And with consistency, I began to feel different, stronger, steadier, more like me again. So if you've ever felt like your legs don't move the way they used to, or if getting out of bed feels just a little harder than it used to, you're not imagining it, but you're also not stuck with it. In this video, I'll show you exactly what helped me. 5 foods I eat regularly to protect and rebuild my legs. 5 small morning habits that brought back my balance and energy. And the one simple dish that made all the difference. Don't forget to stay until the end of this video. I have a little gift for you. Just something simple but made with care. You don't need expensive supplements. You don't need hours of exercise. You just need to start your day right with the right knowledge, the right habits, and the right kind of care for the most important muscles in your body. Let's get started. Part 1. The morning my legs gave me a warning. It started with something so small, I almost ignored it. Just a strange heaviness in my legs one morning. I swung my feet over the side of the bed like I always did, but they didn't feel like they were mine. They felt like weights. Not painful, just resistant, like the floor had shifted somehow. I stood up slowly, balancing on the nightstand. My knees trembled a little. It wasn't dizziness. It wasn't weakness. Exactly. It was something in between, like a signal from my body I couldn't quite decode yet. Have you ever had one of those moments where something subtle whispers, but deep inside you know it's not just a one-time thing? That's what this felt like. And yet, I brushed it off. Blamed the weather. Blamed the mattress. Blamed myself for skipping dinner the night before. But my gut already knew. This wasn't nothing. That week, I noticed more. I reached for the handrail going down the stairs. I hesitated before stepping off a curb. There was this strange, quiet delay between my brain telling my legs to move and my legs actually doing it. I wasn't in pain. That's the scary part. Losing muscle doesn't hurt. It doesn't come with sirens or fevers. It sneaks in silently while you're busy thinking you're fine. And that's why most people ignore it. Until one day, it's not just a shaky step, it's a fall. You see, we often think of aging as a decline in energy or memory. But for many, the first real sign comes from the legs. They carry the weight of everything. Your errands, your walks, your independence. And when they go quiet, it's easy to miss until it's too loud to ignore. I wasn't ready to admit anything yet. But deep down, I was scared. Scared that this wasn't just fatigue, that it might be the start of something I couldn't reverse. And then one night it happened again. I got up to get a glass of water. My foot dragged. I caught myself on the hallway wall, heart racing. No stumble, no injury. But I didn't feel steady, not like before. That night, I couldn't fall back asleep. My mind kept circling the same question. Was this just getting older, or was I starting to lose something more important? Here's the strange part. Most people think leg weakness is a natural part of aging, that it happens to everyone. But what no one tells you is that it often begins not in your bones, not in your nerves, but in your routine. The choices you make, especially in the first hour after you wake up. And that's what I began to explore. I didn't want to lose my ability to walk through the park stand in the kitchen and make coffee, or dance slowly in the living room with my husband on a Sunday afternoon. So I started looking into mornings, and what I found surprised me. There's a word for what I was experiencing. Sarcopenia, muscle loss related to aging. But the truth, it's not just age. It's a process, one that's deeply affected by diet, movement, and timing. Here's something most people don't know. After 7 to 9 hours of sleep, your body enters a catabolic state. That means it starts to break down muscle tissue for energy, especially in the legs, the largest muscles in your body. So, if you skip breakfast or eat the wrong thing, you're basically telling your body, sure, go ahead. Use my strength as fuel. That was my wake-up call. That single moment of leg heaviness. It wasn't just discomfort. It was my body tapping me on the shoulder, saying, if you don't pay attention now, you might not be able to later. And that moment became the first clue in a trail I didn't know I'd been walking. Part 2. It wasn't just aging. It was muscle loss. I used to think getting older just came with little inconveniences. Slower mornings, the occasional stumble, a bit of stiffness after sitting too long. Everyone told me it was normal. You're just aging, they'd say with a soft smile. And I believed them. But here's what I began to realize. This wasn't just aging. It was something else. Something that crept in so gradually, I almost didn't notice. At first, I had to hold the edge of the bed to stand. Then, I needed to grab the banister when walking down the stairs. Soon, I found myself hesitating before stepping off the curb. Not because I was afraid, but because I no longer trusted my own legs. The truth hit me one morning when I dropped my keys. I bent down to pick them up and froze halfway. My knees felt shaky. My thighs burned like I had just finished climbing a mountain. And that's when I said it out loud for the first time. What is happening to me? I wasn't overweight. I wasn't sick. I wasn't even inactive. But something inside me had shifted. It wasn't pain. It wasn't injury. It was loss. And it had a name. Sarcopenia. The slow, silent breakdown of muscle mass, especially in the legs, that starts after the age of 60. And the worst part, most people don't even know it's happening. Because it doesn't hurt. It doesn't scream. It just takes. a little more each week. I read that adults over 60 can lose up to a third of their leg strength within a decade. That's not aging, that's erosion, like a bridge crumbling from the inside. Still standing, but weakening in ways you don't see until it's too late. I started noticing other signs too. I couldn't sit cross-legged as easily. I got winded going up the stairs. I hesitated before walking on uneven ground. And every time I dismissed it, I was giving this silent thief more power. So I asked myself a hard question. Was I really just getting older? Or was I allowing myself to slip into weakness? And here's where it gets strange. When I finally started reading about muscle loss, I found out that it's not only preventable, but in many cases reversible. That blew my mind, because no one had ever told me that. Not a single doctor. Not a single article I'd come across in my daily reading. But it was true. Our muscles, especially in the legs, can regenerate. Not in the same way as when we were 20, but enough to restore balance, strength, and confidence. And here's something that changed everything for me. It doesn't require heavy lifting. It doesn't require running 5 miles. It starts with something as small as what you eat within 1 hour of waking up. Most people skip breakfast, or they drink coffee and call it a meal. Or worse, they grab something processed, sweet, or completely lacking in nutrients. And all of that feeds the muscle loss. Why? Because after 7 to 9 hours of sleep, your body is in what's called a catabolic state. That means it's burning its own tissue. Yes, even muscle for energy, especially the biggest muscles in your body, the ones in your legs. So when you wake up and don't refuel properly, your body continues to pull strength from the very thing that keeps you standing. That single truth changed how every morning. Breakfast wasn't just a habit anymore. It was protection. It was the difference between decline and recovery. And so I began to look at my mornings differently. Not just what I was eating, but how I was treating the first hour of my day. And it all started to make sense. The warning signs, the heaviness, the hesitation. They weren't aging, they were messages. And I had finally started listening. Part 3. How my breakfast was making it worse. I always thought I was doing fine in the mornings. A quick cup of coffee, maybe a slice of toast if I had time, and then I'd get moving. I didn't think breakfast mattered much, not at my age. But after those shaky mornings, after those quiet moments, when my legs felt foreign, I began to look more closely. And what I found was a little shocking. The very things I thought were harmless, even helpful, were slowly working against me. Most mornings, I skipped real food. I'd sip black coffee, scroll through my phone, and tell myself I'd eat something later. But later often meant noon. And by then, my body had already made its decision. It had been fueling itself with whatever was available. And when nothing's coming in, your muscles become the meal. That's what no one talks about. Your body doesn't wait. When it's in need, it takes what it can. And your leg muscles, being the largest and most energy demanding, are often the first to go. Some mornings, I did eat, but it was the wrong kind of meal. A piece of white bread with jam, a banana, and sugary yogurt. It felt like food, but it wasn't fuel. not for muscles, not for balance, not for strength. I learned that the typical breakfast for many adults over 60 is actually working against them. Refined carbs spike blood sugar, then crash it, leaving your muscles weak and your energy scattered. And worst of all, they come without the key: building blocks, protein, healthy fats, essential minerals that your legs desperately need every single day. Even coffee, which I love, can be a problem when taken on an empty stomach. It stimulates the nervous system, but without nutrients to support it, it adds stress to your already delicate muscle balance. One morning, I decided to test something. Instead of skipping breakfast or grabbing toast, I made a small plate with one hard-boiled egg and a few slices of steamed sweet potato. No sugar, no distractions. Just simple, whole food. And by midday, I noticed something. I wasn't dragging my feet. My steps felt cleaner, lighter. I didn't stumble when bending down to tie my shoes. It was subtle, but unmistakable. That's when I realized the food we choose first thing in the morning sets the tone for the rest of the day. Not just how we feel, but how our muscles function, how our blood flows, how steady we walk, how strong we stand. It sounds dramatic, but breakfast really is the first line of defense against the slow erosion of our independence. And yet most of us skip it, or we settle for something convenient, processed, or lacking any real benefit. What's worse is that we don't even realize it. We think it's normal to feel tired by noon, to wobble a bit on the steps, to feel our legs burning after a short walk. But it's not normal. It's a consequence. And the good news, it's fixable. Once I began changing what I ate in the morning, just small swaps, really my body began responding. More balance, less fatigue, more confidence. I started to believe in my legs again, and that shift in belief was the beginning of my recovery. So now, each morning, I ask myself one question: am I feeding my strength or slowly starving it? And every morning, I make a choice. Because I've learned the hard way, what you put in your body after you wake up can either build your legs back up or quietly break them down. Part 4. 5 simple foods that rebuilt my legs. I didn't expect food to change anything. When I first started this journey, I was just hoping to stop the decline. But what happened next caught me completely off guard. Within a few weeks of changing my breakfast, my legs felt lighter. Getting up from the couch didn't feel like lifting sandbags. The hesitation in my steps started to fade, and the cramps that used to wake me up at night, they stopped. But here's the most surprising part. It wasn't anything exotic. No powders, pills, or superfoods with names I couldn't pronounce. Just 5 simple, familiar ingredients, each one doing its part to bring my legs back to life. The first was the humble egg. Boiled, scrambled, poached. However I made it, I made sure I didn't skip the yolk, because that's where the real magic is. Vitamin D, B12, choline iron, all essential for muscle strength, nerve function, and blood flow. But the one thing that stood out the most, leucine. It's an amino acid that acts like a switch flipping on your body's muscle-building response. One egg in the morning gave my body what it had been missing. Not energy from sugar, but fuel from protein, repair, recovery, real support. Then came oats and chia seeds. This combination felt like a secret weapon. Oats gave me steady energy without the crash. And chia tiny seeds, but full of omega-3s, magnesium, and potassium, the trio that helps prevent leg cramps and keep circulation flowing. I didn't expect something so simple to make such a difference in how I stood, how I moved. But every spoonful felt like insurance for my muscles. Next was the banana, nature's electrolyte pill. One medium banana added just enough potassium to calm my muscles and reduce that weird twitching I used to feel when sitting too long. But more than that, it helped me feel stable, like my legs were listening better, as if the messages from my brain were coming through clearer. Then there was Greek yogurt, creamy filling and packed with slow-digesting protein. It helped me feel strong deep into the afternoon, not just full, and with calcium and vitamin D, it gave my bones and joints the support they needed to move with confidence again. And finally, salmon. Not every day, just twice a week, but even that small change made a big impact. The omega-3s reduced inflammation in my legs, and the high-quality protein repaired what time had been trying to take. I started pan-searing a small fillet, eating it alongside veggies or sweet potatoes. And I noticed something strange. My steps became smoother. My balance improved. Even my mood lifted. I hadn't felt this grounded in years. These 5 foods, eggs, oats, and chia bananas, Greek yogurt, and salmon, aren't trendy. They're not flashy. But for someone like me, someone who just wanted to get back to feeling strong in her own body, they were everything. They became my allies. Every bite, a quiet act of resistance against the idea that growing older means growing weaker. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that what we eat in the morning doesn't just fill us. It shapes us. It either gives back or takes away. So I chose to give back, to nourish, to restore. And my legs, they noticed. They responded. They came back to me one step at a time. But there was still one missing piece. One food that tied it all together, a dish I never thought would matter, but turned out to be the quiet hero of my recovery. Part 5. One hidden dish that made the difference. Of all the things I tried, this was the one I almost skipped. It seemed too ordinary, too simple, like it couldn't possibly make a difference. But it did. In fact, it became the dish I now depend on the most, the one that gently reset my mornings and helped me feel grounded again. What was it? A warm piece of steamed sweet potato with just a light sprinkle of natural mineral salt. That's it. No sauce, no sugar, no oil. Just a soft, earthy root vegetable and a pinch of sea salt, Celtic or Himalayan. Let me tell you why this mattered so much. Sweet potatoes are packed with complex carbs. Not the kind that spike your blood sugar, but the kind that fuel your muscles slowly and steadily. After a night of fasting, 7, 8, sometimes 9 hours of no food, your muscles are low on energy. And when they don't get refueled properly, they begin to break down. But sweet potatoes eaten warm in the morning restore glycogen to your leg muscles, which means less fatigue, less cramping, and more power behind each step you take. But it wasn't just the carbs. Sweet potatoes are rich in potassium, magnesium, vitamin C, and manganese. That blend supports blood flow, reduces inflammation, and helps nerves fire correctly so you don't feel wobbly when you stand up. Now here's the part that surprised me the most. That tiny pinch of mineral salt. It changed everything. Most people are afraid of salt, and yes, processed table salt in large amounts isn't good. But natural mineral salt is different. It contains over 80 trace minerals, many of which your muscles rely on to contract smoothly. Without those minerals, your muscles become jittery, unresponsive, and more prone to cramps and stiffness. The salt helped me rehydrate in the morning, not just with water, but with the minerals my body had lost overnight. It supported better circulation, and more importantly, helped my muscles absorb the nutrients I was feeding them. Each morning, I began with a glass of warm water. Then about 10 minutes later, I ate half a steamed sweet potato with a touch of Celtic salt. The result, my legs didn't feel like strangers anymore. They responded. They moved. They supported me. And maybe the biggest change was in my confidence. I stopped hesitating before stepping onto a staircase. I stopped using both hands to push off the couch. I started walking through my home and later the neighborhood with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Stability. That dish, so simple, so overlooked, became the bridge between my weakness and my strength. And I still eat it most mornings, not because I have to, but because I want to. Because it reminds me what's possible. You don't always need big changes. Sometimes it's the small ones that whisper, "You're coming back." And with that dish in place, I was finally ready to rebuild not just my muscles, but my entire morning. What came next was just as important as what I put on my plate. It was about the way I moved, stood, breathed, and began my day. 5 habits that I now hold close because they made all the difference. Part 6. Morning habits that helped me stand tall. Once I started eating the right foods, I could feel the difference. But something told me there was still more I could do. Something beyond nutrition. Something about how I started my day, and that's when I began experimenting. Not with supplements or exercise routines, but with small, almost invisible habits. I didn't want anything complicated, just simple actions that felt good, felt right, and made me feel steady from the moment I opened my eyes. Here are the 5 habits that transformed my mornings and helped my legs rediscover their strength. The first, a glass of warm water with a pinch of mineral salt. Every morning, before food, before coffee, I sit quietly and sip. It takes 5 minutes. But what it does inside is profound. After sleeping all night, your body wakes up dehydrated. Your muscles, especially in your legs, are stiff, slow, and hungry for electrolytes. That pinch of Celtic salt, it gently restores balance. It wakes up circulation. It helps your nerves reconnect with your muscles. I began noticing that the tightness in my calves lessened. The strange pins and needles feeling when I stood up, gone. Then came habit 2, standing balance. I don't stretch. I don't work out. I just stand. I lift one foot 2 inches off the floor, hold for 10 seconds, switch legs, repeat. That's it. It trains my body to trust itself again. It reminds my legs of their purpose to stabilize, support, and move me through life. At first, I wobbled. I couldn't even hold 5 seconds. But within a week, I improved. And within a month, I could stand on one foot while brushing my teeth without grabbing the counter. The third habit is so simple it's almost silly. I wait 3 breaths before getting out of bed. Most mornings, we shoot up. But our circulation hasn't caught up yet. That's when you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or worse when falls happen. So now, I lie there. 3 slow breaths. Rotate my ankles, roll my wrists. Then I sit. That 30-second pause has saved me more times than I can count. Habit number 4, morning light. Before I check my phone, before I even turn on a lamp, I open the curtain. I let in the light. Even 5 minutes of natural sunlight tells my body that the day has begun. It boosts vitamin D, regulates my sleep rhythms, and strengthens bones and muscles in ways I never expected. It feels symbolic too. Letting light in both outside and in me. And the 5th habit, never let myself go too long without eating. If I can't make a full breakfast, I still eat something small. A boiled egg, a piece of sweet potato, even just a spoon of yogurt. Because every minute that passes in that catabolic morning state is a minute my body starts pulling energy from the wrong place, my muscles. Now with these 5 habits in place, my mornings feel different. My legs don't feel like strangers. My steps don't feel unsure. It's not about perfection. Some days I forget one. Some days I move slower. But I always return. Because these habits, they ground me. They're not dramatic. They're not expensive. They're not even that noticeable to anyone but me. But I know what they've given me. The power to stand, to walk, to live without fear of falling. And that is everything. What I didn't expect was that these habits combined with the food changes would bring me to a place I never thought I'd be again. Not just stable, not just stronger, but confident, in control, and more myself than I'd felt in years. And yet, I wasn't quite done. Because the real victory, the part that touched me most, came when I realized something deeper. This journey wasn't just about my legs. It was about reclaiming a part of myself I thought had faded with age. But it hadn't. It was still there, waiting. Part 7. The moment I knew I got my strength back. It happened on a Wednesday. Nothing extraordinary, just a quiet, breezy afternoon. I was folding laundry in the bedroom, a simple chore I used to dread because it meant standing too long, bending too often, and sometimes feeling that sharp pull in my hamstrings that forced me to sit down halfway through. But that day, I folded every towel, every shirt. I stacked everything neatly, and when I turned to walk down the hallway with my basket, I didn't notice anything unusual until halfway to the living room. I stopped. I was still holding the basket, still standing. No ache, no cramp, no wobble. And for the first time in what felt like years, I realized something small but massive. I wasn't thinking about my legs. They were just doing their job. Quietly, faithfully, strong. That's when it hit me. This was the moment. Not the flashy before and after, not a doctor's approval or a number on a chart. This was it. The moment I stopped fearing my own body. The moment my muscles were no longer a source of worry, but a quiet source of pride. It wasn't about lifting heavy weights or running marathons. It was about trust. Trusting that when I stood, my legs would catch me. That's the moment that made everything worth it. The months of changing how I eat, the little rituals each morning, the awkward balance drills in the kitchen, the frustration when progress felt slow, because in that quiet, ordinary moment, I felt extraordinary. I wasn't trying to feel young again. I was discovering a new kind of strength, one that comes from patience, from paying attention, from listening to the soft language of your body. And I realized something else. This journey wasn't just about rebuilding my legs. It was about reclaiming my rhythm, my joy, my independence. I could take the stairs without gripping the rail. I could walk down to the mailbox without planning a rest stop. I could reach for the top shelf without calculating how much energy I'd have left. And the pride I felt, it wasn't loud. It was quiet. It came from the inside. It made me smile for no reason, made me stand a little taller. I remember walking back into the living room that day, setting the basket down and just standing still for a moment, letting it sink in. I had come back to myself, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't waiting for the next fall. I was living again. And that's what I want for anyone watching this, to know it's possible, to believe that even the smallest changes, the quietest habits, the most ordinary foods can give you back what age tries to take. Your strength, your confidence, your freedom. It doesn't happen all at once, but it starts with one step. And once you take that step, you'll be surprised how far you can go. Maybe strength doesn't come roaring back like a storm. Maybe it tiptoes in on quiet mornings, on ordinary days, through simple meals and silent promises we make to ourselves. This journey taught me that aging doesn't mean fading. It means adapting. It means listening more closely to our bodies and choosing to meet them with care instead of fear. We're not broken. We're not beyond repair. We're just waiting for the right kind of nourishment, not just for our muscles, but for our hope. Your legs may feel shaky today, but they remember. They remember the strength they once carried. And with patience, with love, they can carry you again. I created a playlist filled with gentle foods and morning habits for people over 60. You'll find it in the video description. It's everything. I wish someone had told me sooner. And if this story moved you, please share it with someone you care about. A friend, a parent, a neighbor, someone who needs to hear. It's not too late. Let them feel strong again. If this video helped you, tap like, leave a comment, tell me your moment of strength. Subscribe for more stories and small daily steps toward healing. And here's a question to carry with you. What's one habit you'll start tomorrow morning? You choose. 1 or 2. Start small, but start with belief. Because sometimes the strongest thing we can do is simply stand.